I think Putin respects Trump more than he does certainly Biden and certainly Harris as well, I would have thought. I want to deal with Ukraine because Joseph Borrell has just claimed that the first tranche of interest on the 300 billion in frozen Russian assets, and that's about 1.4 billion, is going to be sent to Kyiv in the first week in August. How do you think Russia's going to respond to that, George?
Well, I think he'll be very upset about it because, of course, this is money that belongs to Russia, and that this is obviously a complete violation of all international law and all international banking practices. Because while it has been done that in times of war, the foreign assets of antagonist powers have been frozen, it has never been done that money, or even the interest earned on that money, has been put to use, and particularly not put to use to fund a war party. In other words, this is Russian money that is being used to kill Russians. That has never been done. That was not done to Nazi Germany. I mean, Nazi Germany's assets were frozen during World War II. But the British didn't say, well, thank you very much, we're going to help ourselves to this money and use it to fund our war effort against Nazi Germany. So this is absolutely unheard of. But this came about as a result of American pressure. America wanted just to transfer the whole chunk of change, that 300 billion euros, lock, stock, and barrel, and give it all to Ukraine. This is just the EU attempt to keep the Americans happy without completely undermining its position as some kind of a banking and financial sector. Because if we just simply had handed the whole 300 billion over, I think Europe would have completely lost any credibility around the world as a place where you park your money. But this is certainly bad enough. And there's also, they're going to make use of this money for the loan. There's the 50 billion euro loan in which Ukraine, which obviously can't possibly repay the loan, will be given this interest payment and say, hey, here's your interest payment. Now pay this back to us, and then we'll and this money is obviously Russian money. You pay it back to us, and then we'll call it quits and say, yeah, you're good on the loan. You're meeting your interest payment obligation. So they're going to make use of that as well. But again, it's it just shows a total lack of any foresight about the future. I mean, if EU wants to maintain itself as a credible force in the world for business, finance, industry, whatever, I mean, it's going exactly the wrong way about it.
Yeah, Martin.
Yeah, and where is that money going to end up? I mean, in the last couple of years, I've done 2 investigations, one for the Daily Mail and one for another outlet on British and NATO arms and money, military aid going to Ukraine. And I started off doing those investigations with this figure, the statistic that was being bandied around by the skeptics, who said that only a third of what we send to Ukraine actually gets to the battlefield. 2/3 of it is frittered away. And I was very skeptical about this, but after I finished my investigations, I discovered that figure was actually quite realistic. So, most of this money is not even getting to where it's supposed to go. People don't seem to care about that, and so I think that's a disconnect between, and that's media's fault, because people really need to understand that money could be spent on, in Britain it could be spent on heating old people's homes, operations, that people need, unemployment, building schools, just infrastructure, which it isn't. It's going straight to this black hole. We tend to forget, we tend to gloss over that Ukraine has this terrible reputation of being one of the most corrupt countries in the world. And money laundering is really the deal here. Money laundering is the name of the game. This is what they're very good at. And so I'm worried that this money isn't really going to make any difference. I mean, we've had a lot of talk in the last couple of weeks about NATO coming up with $43 billion on some new kit, more sophisticated long-range rockets, F-16 jets, But it's really just everything that we tend to provide to Ukraine from the West tends to be a sticking plaster. It tends to be always a temporary measure to keep the thing going, to keep the machine ticking over, to keep everything running, but with no pretense, not even a delusional idea that the West could ever win a war against Russia and Ukraine. Of course not. So then you have to ask yourself, well, why are these elites doing this? And I come back to being a very cynical journalist who's been doing corruption stories all my life. I just see corruption. I just see scams. I see kickbacks. I see graft on an industrial scale. And this is really the heart of the matter with Ukraine, and whether we want to actually accept this as a norm. We've almost accepted it because people like Ursula von der Leyen just conveniently just want to close their eyes and soldier ahead and come up with these stupid $50 billion loans. She knows half of that money is just going to go to Zelensky's cabal, and also I think from the West, when we talk about military kit and military spending, it's a similar story. We've closed our eyes. It was only the other week. It was only a week ago, I think, that NATO told Ukraine, you can't become a member of Ukraine because you're too corrupt. So there seems to be a disconnect there between the reality on the ground, and then the narrative. Ukraine is really going to be just a bigger and bigger problem, which drives us closer and closer to a world war. We need a safety mechanism. We need a handbrake. We need a common sense function which stops this escalation, this ridiculous escalation, which has led us to the position now where we're even looking at the possibility of a world war.
Yeah, you make some excellent points. And in terms of where the money goes, you're just saying it's ending up in the hands of, corruption. Is that basically it? You do actually follow where the money goes?
Yeah, I mean, a lot when it's for military equipment, a lot of it ends up in the second-hand arms bazaar of Libya. Libya is like a hub of military equipment. Wherever you are in the world, whether you're a Mexican drug cartel or you're an African despot, you go to Libya and buy all your guns very cheaply. I mean, the Nigerian president last year made a statement saying that we have all these new problems of a terrorist group in the Sahel region because of the cheap availability of NATO weapons flooding the marketplace. I put that point to Ben Wallace, the former defense secretary in the UK, and he just started insulting me. He just started sending me these abusive messages on WhatsApp, and telling me I wasn't a journalist. I mean, it's hilarious.
You should read those out. I mean, we're very keen to, as I say, but sunlight is the best disinfection. Yeah,
of course. But when you've been a journalist as long as I have, at my age, when a government minister starts taking cheap shots at you, you're hitting the bullseye. You're getting it. Yeah. And Ben Wallace refused to acknowledge this statement by the Nigerian president. He said, no, the Nigerian president, he's misinformed. He watches RT television too much. I mean, shameful, absolutely shameful.
Well, it is. Well, sadly, we've run out of time. We will be addressing in tomorrow's programme, Benjamin Netanyahu is scheduled to attend a joint meeting of Congress today. It'll be very interesting. And I've read an opinion piece in one publication about a genocidal war criminal will address Congress as a congressman. I'm outraged. Be interesting to see their feedback to that. But for now, George and Martin, thank you. Always a pleasure seeing you both. Hopefully, I'll see you both back on Friday, and I will see the rest of you here tomorrow. Thanks for joining us.